Okay, so now we have finished doing our collisions against our player. We've done those pieces. Now we need to start actually doing this one. And this one is going to take a little bit to work on because instead of us just having our player react to the ground, we actually have to build the ground. We've never done that yet. We've just had him automatically sit on the ground at the very bottom. So now if we want to add platforms, then the whole idea of this is that if our player is moving, we have a ground level, we could make it where he could fall off, okay? So that would be useful for us. The other thing that we would need, and this is all going to take a number of different tweaks to code this up, if we have our player be able to jump onto another platform. So we mentioned about this before, that we could have him clip right through, and we want this to actually be in the front. Okay, so, oops. There we go. Okay, so when we have our player, we want him to go through, and then as soon as his velocity increases, that means he's going down, we want him to stop at the platform. Okay, we're going to have to create a platform. Now there's a couple things that I think we need to start thinking about when we're thinking of a platform, because we're going to want to start coding that. There's a couple pieces that we're going to need to do. First off, when we have our player, we need to generate what level that they are when we initially create our player and create our enemies. Otherwise, if we want to start implementing some type of gravity and that they could fall off of platforms, then we're going to have to tell them that they're on a platform at the very start. So we're going to have to create the platforms right away. There's a couple other things that I would think. Depending on the type, we might need to generate that our platforms have certain sizes. So if I was looking at our assets that we have, all right, so let's look kind of here. These are the assets that we have in here, if I was walking through where I got them. Okay, I'm in the Ninja Run game assets. I'm going to background, and then we have the platform. Okay, now there is a number of just individual pieces. I'm going to open this up because this is showing everything. Okay, now if I wanted to start generating edges, yes, I see that there are multiple pieces that are different sizes. Could I use those? Absolutely. Do I really need to? No. The ones that we could build, we really just need a left, a right, and a middle. If we look carefully, all of these, that is what this is right here. This is with a middle and a right. This is with the left and a middle. Here is two middles. Okay, this is a variation right here, but we have a middle, some type of variation, another middle, some type of variation. Okay, and then it's basically something. So whatever we're doing, if we want to not use lots and lots of assets, if we could build with only a couple different pictures, say this one, and this one, then we're actually saving quite a bit of memory because we don't have to reload a whole bunch of different versions. So what I'm thinking of when I'm thinking of a platform is if I am creating a platform, it could be a dynamic, meaning that we would have a type of position, a velocity, because it is going to be moving across our screen. But it's also going to have some additional things. We could specify a list of images like the start, the middle, and the end, and maybe a length. So we could give it an initial length. That would be beneficial if we wanted to have, say, this one to be a ground one and maybe not have a starting velocity so that it covers the entire screen. Okay, so we could have it be that exact length of my screen and it doesn't move, so then my player always can jump on it without falling through. But if I do want to implement where there is a gap, then I can have it where it's resetting and I could have multiple different platforms. I also want to make sure that with this platform, I would like, if we have a moving platform, that when it gets off the screen, that I could generate a new size for it and have it build how it displays dynamically. So I'm thinking in terms of a design, we want to have it have a length that, you know, starts off, and if we don't give it a length, we want it to generate some random length. That way we could generate a length that we have for our platform for our ground, but then if we wanted to have floating platforms, we could have them have varying sizes. Okay, so there's a couple things that we would need. To think about. So we have talked about how we wanted to display it. That's going to end up having to be in some type of a loop. We're going to go through each one of those pieces. And then we're going to end up having to have some type of reset. Okay, so if we were going to and we could use that reset position that we just did, but at that same time, we're going to end up having to do some type of random length for a platform. So let's go ahead and start building that. And then in the next video, we'll start working, and that one's going to be a little bit of a longer video. We're going to start working towards having us collide with those, because we'll have to change a lot of what we do for our player so that he can fall down. And then we'll eventually have to start tweaking the enemies so that we could have them get set on certain platforms, and then they could also fall down. Okay, so I don't want to download from here. We do want a left, a right, and then we identified, let's make sure that we're opening up the right one. We don't need that one. We don't need this one. We need this one. Okay, that would be our middle. So this would be our left, our right, our middle. We need to download these three. Okay, so highlight them, download those. It's going to zip. You need to make sure that you are doing the right slices. Okay, for left, right, and middle. While that's happening, because we don't have to have those edited right away, let's put that in our downloads folder. Call it platform. We're going to have to extract those and use those up. Okay, now in here we're going to need to create a new class that we're going to have to build off of. So I do like that we're using the dynamic. I want to keep using that. I'm going to add a new file. I'm going to call it platform.js. And in here, we're going to inherit from the dynamic. Okay, it's not a dynamic creature. We don't want any type of health or anything like that with it, but we do want it to be dynamic. It is going to have a position and velocity. We do want it to move. So we're going to use this and just modify it. It's going to have a type. It's going to have a position. It's going to have a velocity so that it moves across our screen. We do want it to have that list of images. So we'll have a left, a right, and a middle that we could pass in. That way, if we wanted to create new platforms, we could actually pass in different sets of images, like what we have here, if we were changing locations. So this might be a jungle, this might be a desert. We could change that and create new platforms or change those images. Okay, and then we also wanted it to pass in a length like what I was mentioning. Now with this, let's pass in the stuff that we need for the dynamic into the super. So we need the type, the position, the velocity, and then what else? Dynamic versus dynamic. Now, this is not reacting to anything else. Now, I could react to it, but I don't need it to react to me. I want it to be, if it's moving, I want it to continue moving. If I'm jumping on it, I don't want it to get, any type of force push, anything. So It's false against dynamic versus dynamic. It's false against dynamic versus map. And it doesn't matter if it's friendly or not because it's a stationary object. Okay. Now the next thing, and I actually got this from Govine, that we can pass in a length, and if we don't, we can have it randomly give some type of value. So we can say int random, and maybe I want to do, say, 3 to 10. Okay, this would make it so that if we passed in a value as a length, it would give it. If it doesn't have that value, and that's why I have it as last. I could pass it in as null, or I could leave it completely blank and just give it a type, position, velocity, and the list of images. And since it will not see it because it's the very last one, I can have it randomly assign an int value from 3 to 10. Okay, so that will make it work. The next things that we need is we have to have a length. Oops, we already did that one. A list of images. We got to store those. We're going to need to have, I'm going to call this cell width, and I'll just default this to 50, and a cell height, and I'm going to default that to 50. Now that could be tweaked for the middle, because if you look at mine, it looks like I'm squishing them a little bit because I'm not sizing it the size it was originally created, but it will still blend really well. Now I'm also going to give this a total width. I need to know how long this thing actually is when I create it, which is going to be that length. So the length that I'm using is going to be like, maybe it is, the length is like 8 little cells is what I'm kind of thinking of as cells. So those cells, I'm going to multiply that by my cell width. So this dot cell width. That is going to give me my total width of my platform. Okay, now other things that I would need. I need an update and pretty much a display. Okay, so my update is going to be, I need to call the update from the dynamic class, which is going to update my position with my velocity. I want to make sure that the width is equal to this dot length times this dot the cell width. That way if I change it, it is updated. Okay. Now I also want to check when we have it go off the screen, I want to check that. So I'm going to say if this dot position dot x plus this dot width, if that is, so this is the right edge of it, if that is less than 0, then it means that I'm off the screen, and I can reset the position, and I'll reset it to say, I'm going to make it so it's appearing on the screen, but ultimately we would have this greater than width, some random value to make it so it doesn't appear right away. And then I'm not changing my Y value. I'm only having this where it's going to appear here so that I can make sure it's working properly. Okay, and then I will adjust these when I'm ready and I don't need to keep testing. All right, now if we are off the screen, I'm resetting the position, but I'm also resetting the length. So this dot length is going to be equal to the int of a random value from, let's say, 3 to 10. We're going to regenerate a new length. Okay, that should be all that I need for my update. I do need one for a display, and this is where it's going to be a little bit different. The display, we're going to want to start with a push and pop because we don't want to mess anything else up. Okay, push pop. And I need to display the image of the left cell, or the left edge. So that would be the first one that I'm going to pass in, and then I can give it the position. So this dot position dot x, this dot position dot y, this dot cell width, and this dot cell height. Okay. That is what I'm doing for the left edge. I need to do the same thing basically for the right edge. So I'm going to give some space because I'm going to put that here. This is my right edge, which would be 2. But I needed, where I'm drawing is going to be a little bit different. So this is going to be this dot position dot x plus this dot length minus 1 times this dot cell width. Basically, I got to keep doing the math on this to make sure that this is going to be accurate, because I'm treating this as kind of like an array. So the very last one, I need to find that left edge of it, and then I need to calculate the length. Okay, now this middle part, we need to do a for loop, and I need to have a reference to the index. So I'm going to say index as 1 because I already did the first one, and I want to keep going until index is the second to the last one. Okay, index plus plus. And so inside here, all I'm going to do is that still calling that image, images at, and I want the middle image. So that's what when I passed in this dot position dot x, and then I got to do some math on it. I want to be whatever the index is at times the cell width. Okay, for my x, and that will be accurate. This dot position dot y, this dot c, the cell width, and this dot cell height. Okay, that would be the end of my for loop. So this is my left edge, just so we understand. Left edge. Here is my middle section. And then here is my right section. Okay, now this is going to dynamically get drawn every time because we are dynamically drawing how long it is. All right, that is really all that I need to do this platform. So let's go ahead and save it, and then let's go ahead and put that in our index file. We need to load it, and it needs to be loaded before we are trying to do our player. Oh, making sure I'm tracking my notes so I don't have anything. So I'm going to do this after collectible. So I'm just going to copy here, paste it, and then we're just going to put platform. Okay, so that this will be before I create my player, but it has to be after dynamic. Okay, so that should be everything that we would need. Make sure you guys save your stuff. The next video we're going to actually deal with the collision. So we want to start having this display and move on the screen. We do that, then we can start dealing with the collisions. All right, good luck.